This is Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review with your NHL early lines report for the games taking place on Saturday, October 22nd. Saturday, one of the biggest days of the week in the NHL regular season because it's always a loaded card full of games. More of the same this Saturday, and we're going to talk about a handful of them here on this video. Let's begin by looking at Toronto taking on Chicago. No line yet in this game. We do know that the Leafs coming off tough losses in back-to-back road games this week against Winnipeg and Minnesota. Real tough go for them because they had leads in both of those games in the third period. And the Leafs, again, I've talked about it many times with this team. Great youngsters, great talent, great offensive skill and speed, but they're still learning how to protect leads and just fine-tune their game at the defensive end of the ice. That's going to be put to the test here against the Chicago Blackhawks. And the one thing that's been great about Chicago over the years, they don't mind playing any style of hockey. I mean, Coach Q is comfortable winning a high-scoring game. He's comfortable winning a low-scoring game. Chicago can really adapt to either style of play, and we've seen that on display already this season for the Blackhawks. You know, they've been in a lot of high-scoring games so far. I mean, you look at their last two wins, 5-3 over Nashville, 7-4 over the Philadelphia Flyers. Probably going to want to clean up some of the mistakes they've made in their defensive zone. Really going to want to clean up their penalty kill as well. Chicago's definitely struggled in terms of the penalty kill so far this season. They've had a real challenge in that regard. Going to be put to the test here from a penalty kill perspective by this Toronto team, which can ice a pretty talented power play in terms of skill and youth with Matthews and Marner and Nylander, Kadri, Bozak, and Van Riemsdyk can also contribute as well in man advantage situations. So it's going to be a challenge for Chicago. I'm interested in the total in this game because we know with Toronto, they haven't been able to hold leads on the road. That's a problem. And Toronto, you look at this season so far, 3 road games that they've played. Ottawa game sailed over the total, they lose 5-4. The Winnipeg game sailed over the total, they lose 5-4 in overtime. The Minnesota game almost went over the total, 3-2 loss, but again, Minnesota not exactly what you think of as an over team. I'll be interested to look over the total in this game. We will see what the total is, but would lean over. As of right now, of course, no line on this game. Carolina, Philadelphia. Carolina is a team that has gotten off to a real rough start so far this season, but finally getting off the schneid in their last game, a nice road win, 4-2 against the Calgary Flames to snap a very tough 3-game losing streak to begin the season. This is going to be the 5th game now on their road trip. Tough spot for Carolina. You look at the travel, they've gone from Winnipeg to Vancouver to Edmonton to Calgary. Now they got to go to the East Coast here, play the Flyers with very little extra time to get ready for this game. Really with Carolina, the key for them is going to be, can they clean things up defensively? They have shown signs of that the last couple of games. We'll see if that win sparks them a little bit. But for the Philadelphia Flyers, this is kind of has the feel of a team that might be a little bit desperate coming into this game. They won their opener against the LA Kings on the road 4-2, took advantage of that suspect LA goaltending, which we will get to later in this video, to win that game. But since then, they've suffered an overtime loss in Arizona, 7-4 loss in Chicago. They fell behind 4-0 in that game, came back to tie it 4-4. Had the Blackhawks on the ropes, and then Chicago responds with the last 3 goals, including an empty netter, 7-4 loss there, 3-2 loss to Anaheim in their last game. So again, the Flyers looking for a little bit more consistency, definitely looking for a little bit better goaltending. I mean, when you look at what they've done in terms of goaltending, that's always been an Achilles heel of this organization. So far this season, I mean, Steve Mason, 3.47 goals against average, 4.23 goals against in 2 games started by Michael Neuvirth. These are 2 good goalies, but not exactly playing their best right now. That being said, I think this is a great spot for the Philadelphia Flyers, and I can understand why they're a minus 140 home favorite in this game, even though Carolina may get a little boost in momentum and confidence following their first win of the season against Calgary. Next up, we've got Colorado taking on Florida. An interesting game here because, you know, Colorado, a nice, impressive 4-0 shutout victory against Tampa Bay in their last game. Really impressive win for them. But the one thing about Colorado is they've, especially the last couple of years when Patrick Waugh was there, of course, he stepped down last year. Jared Bednar now the head coach of this team. consistency has really lacked for this Avalanche team. Can they keep that momentum going? That's been a concern with this team. We'll see if they can, but so far 3-1 start for the Avalanche. You like what you're seeing in terms of their power play, which has really worked very well so far this season. Their penalty kill even was much better last game. They struggled against Washington and Pittsburgh, but definitely starting to get things rolling a little bit. And Semyon Varlamov, a great performance in net against Tampa Bay. Again, he's a guy that's got that capability. I said it the other day. Can play well in net and look great at times and can look not so great at times. We'll see if he can keep it going with another good performance here. Florida, very tough loss for them against Washington. They were right in that game, battled back from a deficit, tied it up, and then Washington went ahead and put it away with an empty netter. They lose 4-2, 2 losses in a row now for Florida after opening the season with 2 straight wins. You know, I've got question marks still about this Panthers team. When you look at it, they're without Jonathan Huberdeau, Nick Bjugstad, 2 of their better young players, 2 key cogs offensively for this team. So it could be a little bit of a struggle to score goals for them in the meantime. Total of this one, 5.5. And the one thing I'll say about Colorado is, you know, they only allowed 3 goals to Washington. Even though they allowed a lot of shots, they really tightened things up defensively last game against Tampa. And I don't think this is going to be maybe the over-the-total team that they've maybe been in years past. So maybe this game's got a chance to stay under the total. When you look at last year, 2 meetings between these teams, we had 3-2 and 4-1 final scores. Both games staying below what this 5.5 total. So I would lean under the total actually in this game. Colorado's not an easy team to trust to win 2 games in a row, but I'd rather take them plus money here than lay the price with Florida. St. Louis taking on Calgary on Saturday night. The St. Louis Blues off 2 losses in a row. Of course, we cashed in a play of the day winner with the Edmonton Oilers against St. Louis on Thursday. Nice winner there with the Oilers, a 3-1 victory over the Blues. That should have the Blues pretty focused and have their eyes on the prize here in this game, because you know this is not a team that has suffered extended losing streaks a lot during the Ken Hitchcock era, and they're going to be looking to bounce back from that. And this team, you know, got a big piece of this team back in that Edmonton game, even though they lost it with Jaden Schwartz back in the Blues lineup. He's definitely going to help this team moving forward. They probably actually could have beat, maybe should have beat, you could say, the Edmonton Oilers. They did outshoot the Oilers 35-23. It was a great performance in net from Cam Talbot, which is something he's very capable of when he's on his game, and that was the case for the Blues against the Oilers. So they played well enough to win, and if they play similar to that against Calgary here in this game, I think they're going to have a good chance to win. This Calgary team is really disappointed. Brian Elliott's been a huge disappointment, and I think that's maybe a little bit of a hidden edge here for the St. Louis Blues. St. Louis, if Brian Elliott starts here for the Calgary Flames, and you would expect him to, it's their number 1 goal, even though he hasn't really looked like it. In fact, the one Calgary win was when Chad Johnson was in net for this Calgary team in net. That's the only win Calgary's had. I mean, Brian Elliott as the starter, they haven't won a game with him in net so far this season, and he's really struggled to acclimate himself. Maybe it's because he's not playing in front with a solid blue line in front of him as he had in St. Louis. But either way, Brian Elliott probably is going to get the start. I don't think Glenn Gulletson is going to rob Elliott of the opportunity to play his old team. But that's an edge, I think, for St. Louis. They know Elliott's tendencies. They know his style. They know it inside out. He had been in St. Louis for years. And I don't know if the Blues are the tonic to get Brian Elliott his first win as a starting goaltender this season. So I think it's a little bit of an edge for the Blues. Now you have to lay a little bit of a price here, -130, -135 road favorites. And when you get road favorites north of -130, that's typically not a profile I want to back a team in. I'm not often going to look to lay a price of more than -130 on the road in the NHL. However, I would still lean Blues. I would maybe make one exception here with the Blues. I mean, it's just been a rough go for Brian Elliott so far, and the Blues should know his tendencies and his style of goaltending inside out, and I think that might give them the edge here in this game on Saturday. All right, let's wrap it up. It's play of the day time in the NHL for Saturday, October 22nd. We're going to the Vancouver-Los Angeles game for our play of the day. And I'm telling you what, the LA Kings, at the beginning of the season, this price would have looked completely It probably would have been actually more expensive. LA may be laying minus 180 to minus 200 in this game, if not for Vancouver's hot start. But even now, you're still seeing LA minus 150, minus 155 as a favorite in this game. And I am telling you right now, there is no way, not even maybe, that I can lay this kind of price with the Los Angeles Kings right now with the goaltending they're receiving. No way. I mean, even though LA's been a very well defensive structured team over the years under Daryl Sutter, you are asking basically to be paying a liability if you are going to lay this kind of price in the NHL with goaltending that is as weak and as marginal as it is right now for the LA Kings. Peter Budaj and Jeff Zatkoff, I don't care who the hell's in net for this game for LA. I don't want to lay this price with the LA Kings with either of those guys in net. Their numbers have been very poor. Peter Budaj got his first start against the Dallas Stars. LA got their first win in that game, but don't be fooled for a second. It was a lousy performance, if you ask me, by Peter Budaj. Only faced 20 shots, and LA barely surviving with the victory and a 4-3 win in that game. You look at Zatkoff's numbers, a 4.37 goals against average in his 3 games. Peter Budaj struggling in that game against the Dallas Stars, even though the LA Kings win this. I mean, put this game in perspective. LA played a great game. They dominated territorially, puck possession. They had the edge in shots, 39-20 over the Dallas Stars in that game. 39-20, yet life and death to win that hockey game 4-3 in overtime. That tells you all you need to know. There's no margin for error. LA has to play a letter-perfect game right now with their suspect goaltending in order to win games. That's a problem when you're laying this kind of price. In Vancouver, say what you will about, this isn't going to last. They're 4-0. They haven't played anybody yet. This is still one of the worst teams in the NHL. The roof is going to cave in on them eventually. But let's slow down a little bit before we just proclaim that this is a fluke start. I mean, okay, you beat Calgary in a shootout, Carolina in overtime, St. Louis in overtime, Buffalo. First of all, yeah, other than the St. Louis win's a quality win. Other than that, you could make an argument they haven't beaten a real quality team. They've won a bunch of close games that they could have lost, a bunch of coin flip games. That being said, they're finding ways to win. They're playing solid defense, and I don't know what Jacob Markstrom has found in terms of his goaltending form over the offseason, but he has been terrific in net. So good that Ryan Miller can't even get in right now for this team because Jacob Markstrom has been so good. 3 starts for Markstrom, 3-0, 1.65 goals against average. Tremendous numbers so far for Jacob Markstrom, and I would think because he's on a roll, you're going to see him in net for Vancouver in this game, and he's probably got the edge over whoever LA throws in net in this game. The bottom line is, until Vancouver may very well be a phony, and this 4-0 start isn't something that they can sustain. But until I see evidence of them falling and declining, I'm not looking to bet against them. And in this price range, with LA's problems winning games at all, let alone winning games comfortably with their goaltending that is below average, in my opinion, it makes perfect sense to me that Vancouver could be a live underdog in this game. So let's make it official. Let's take Vancouver plus 135. That's rotation number 21. Vancouver plus 135. It's the second game of the Hockey Night in Canada doubleheader on CBC television on Saturday night. Let's watch and win with the Vancouver Canucks plus 135, a live underdog on Saturday night. Your play of the day for October 22nd. All right, that's my look at the NHL card for Saturday, October 22nd. I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Until next time, enjoy the games and good luck.
Go to SBRodds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.